Hey guys, today we are going to be making predictions for world records for the rest of the year and just going over some general events that I think records will be broken for and what the times are going to be, and potentially the person, if it's like a record where or an event where a lot of well-known people do it, then I will probably guess the person. But if it's something like 5x5, well, actually 5x5, 4x4 blindfolded, Stanley Chapel, but anyway. Something like multi-blind, it's kind of inconsistent. Let's just get into it. So, for 3x3 multi-blind, I think the world record will be broken again because it's been broken quite a lot recently. It went to Mark, now it's at Graham. It was at, how do you say his name? Something Kowalczyk, I think is his last name. He had it for the longest time. But I think the new single will be a 50 out of 50, and it will be 55 minutes. And I'm not going to try to guess the person because it's pretty inconsistent. So let's move on to 5x5 blindfolded. So for 5x5 blindfolded, I think it will be Stanley Chapel because he is amazing at big cube blind. I think that's going to be the same for 4x4 blindfolded. And I think the single will be broken by himself. And I think he will get a 2-minute 30-second 5x5 blindfolded single. By the end of the year, I think that's what the record will be. I don't know how many times it's going to be broken, but I think by the end of the year, it will be somewhere around there. And at the end of the year, we'll go back and see if my predictions were right, and maybe a reaction video type thing. I do think the average will be broken again by Stanley Chapel, but I have no idea what the time will be, since averages were just added, I think, recently. So, moving on to 4x4 blindfolded, I think Stanley Chapel would break the record and get a 1-minute flat single by the end of the year. It could be sub 1, but I think it would be kind of hard. It'd take a lot of practice and confidence and a good scramble, but it will be by Stanley Chapel. And I think the average will also be by Stanley Chapel, and I think it'll be a 1-minute 20-second average. I think that's pretty good estimation, even though Stanley Chapel, I think, generally goes for singles. But we'll see. We'll see. So, next up is square one. Recently, the single was broken by Jackie Zhang, and now it's 4.95. And the average is 6.73 by Vincenzo Guirino Cecchini. I probably butchered that terribly. But I think the single by the end of the year will be a 4.5. It could be lower. And I think it'll be by Rasmus. And then the average, I think it'll be down to 6 flat, and I think that'll also be by Rasmus, because he was really close to a, wait, did he get us a 5? I'm confusing myself here, but he's had the world record for a while. I mean, obviously it was broken, but let's just move on to Scube. The single being the second longest world record, second longest standing world record. I think it will have to be broken this year. And I could not tell you for the life of me who will break it, because it just has to be an easy scramble and it has to be consistent. And I'll bump it down to 103. I think it's not going to go much further because with Scube, you really have to be consistent with your turns. It has to be an easy, I think, 7 mover. Like 3 moves into a sledge, basically. That's what it has to be. And I think the average will also go to whoever practices, but maybe Lucas or Liga. Actually, I'm going to leave the average alone. I think it's going to stay at 2 or 3. That's a really good average. It could go sub 2 by the end of the year, but it hasn't been broken since 2017, so I'm just not quite sure. And then Pyraminx, I think the average will be broken for sure. I don't know about the single because that single is really good. It's a 0.91. But I think the average will also go to Dominic, and I think he will get a 1.75 average by the end of the year. Yeah, but it'd have to be pretty lucky scrambles. So I'm going to leave it at that. For Mega Minx, I think the single will be broken by Juan Pablo, and I think he will have a 25 single by the end of the year. And the average, I think, is going to go back to Juan Pablo, and I think it's going to be like 30 flat, maybe. I think that's a pretty solid prediction. Clock. It's interesting because both the single and average were broken this year, and they're both by Cubers in Asia, so I don't know if the record's going to go back to Poland or United States. But I'll bump the single down to 315, maybe 3 flat even, and the average, both these records have been broken this year, so I think the average I'm just going to have to bump down to 4.35. I'll leave it at that. I cannot tell you for the life of me who will get it. But moving on to 3x3 with feet, I'm not quite sure about what's happening with feet because I was following it for a little bit and then I kind of cut off, and now I don't know if they're getting rid of it in 2020. I'm just kind of confused, but I'll leave the records where they're at, and I think that's pretty good because it's kind of dying off a little bit, I would say. And then for 3x3 one-handed, the single, the longest standing record, it has to be broken this year because Max Parker's gotten so close. Patrick Ponce has a 7 single, that's also pretty good. So people are getting closer. They're inching in on Felix's record. So I think it will be broken, and I think Max Parker will have it with a 6.8. So barely world record, but we'll leave it at that. And then the average, I think, will be broken by Max Park as well, and I think he will have a 9.2 average. And then for 3x3 FMC, the single is held by Harry Savage at 17, and the mean was just recently broken, and it should be a 23, right? I'm not sure because someone told me that it was a 22 point something, and it might have not been entered in yet, but I'm just not so sure. So I guess we'll see. Oh yeah, 22.33 new world record FMC mean. Okay, I just had to scroll through my messages. So I don't think that's been entered in yet. Either that or it just wasn't counted. But I think the single will go down. Well, actually, I think somebody will tie the single. The single doesn't often break, actually. And I think the average will stay where it's at 22.33. Moving on to 3x3 blindfolded. I think the single will be down into the 15s somewhere. It's going to be by Jack. The average is going to be in the 17s. And it's going to be my max. I think that's fair for both of them to still have a record by the end of the year. Basically, I'm predicting that a lot of records are going to be broken this year, which might not be the case, but I think Nationals is going to be a really good time. Worlds is going to be a really good time for world records to happen. And competitions after that as well. But for 3x3 blind, sorry, we're done with 3x3 blindfolded. Moving on to 7x7, I think that Max Park will get a 143 single and a 150 flat mean. For 6x6, it's still going to be Max Park for both of them. And I'm going to put the single down to 105, because it really needs to go down. It hasn't progressed much in the last year or two, just by a couple of seconds. And then the average will go down to a 115, or the mean will go down to a 115. For 5x5, I think the single is going to go down to 36, and Felix is going to have it. And I think the average is going to be a 41, and it's going to be my Max Park. For 4x4, I think the single is going to be a 17-something by Sebastian Wire, whatever. And I think the average will be a, gosh, it's really good right now, a 20. No, I'm going to leave the average where it is, because that's a really good average right now. So it's still going to be a 21.13 by Max Park. For 2x2, I think the single is going to stay the same, and I think it's going to become the longest standing single, because it's really hard to get under 0.49, as it's been proven. People have gotten really close, but you just have to have that extra push. And then for the average, I think it will go down to 110, because it's always getting lower and lower, it seems like. And I think, I have no idea who will get it, so I'm just going to leave it at that. 3x3. Oh boy. 3x3. I think the average will stay where it is, because the average is broken this year, and I think it's kind of a one-time thing for a year, unless Felix gets a better one. I think, if anything, Felix is going to get the next one, the next average, if it happens again this year. And then for the single, I really do not think it's going to change. And I know this was controversial, and I think you shouldn't do is just, trying his best, I guess. You shouldn't get all this hate, but I feel like someone with a bigger name might get it, or might go for it in the next year or two. So I don't think it'll be broken this year, and if it is, near the end of the year, it'll probably be broken. And then next year, it probably will be broken with a really easy scramble. So yeah, those are my predictions for world records in 2019. And if I had to make predictions for regulation changes, that would be a completely different video, because I would have a lot of opinions on that, and predictions for that type of topic. So if comment down below or like this video if you want to see that. It might not be a very exciting video, but it'll be something, Usually these prediction videos take more than one day to put out. That's why they're kind of posted every other day from the last video. But these are really fun to make. I like making these predictions, and I hope to do more in the future. And I think by the end of the year, I will come back to this video and make a react video to this and see how well I did. And then after Nationals and after Worlds, I will also do that kind of thing, because it just provides me for another video in the future that I can reflect on this and see how much I got right and how bad I am at these predictions. So that's it for today. I will see you all in the next video.